we start with NBC's Julia Ainsley, and she has some exclusive new reporting. And Julia, you have learned that President Trump has been urging his administration to reinstate the large-scale separation of migrant families crossing the border, and Nielsen resisted. Is that one of the reasons that she's now out?
That's right, Craig. That's what we've been told by several officials who were close to this, that Nielsen resisted not for moral reasons, but for legal and logistical reasons. She reminded the president he would be reversing his own executive order that ended family separation last summer, and that it would go against a court order that demanded the reunification of those separated families. But actually, Craig, I even have some new reporting I can share with you now about Kevin McAleenan, who will be the acting secretary taking Nielsen's place on Wednesday. Three sources say that McAleenan has not been as resistant as Nielsen, and that he has floated an option and thinks that an option should be on the table called binary choice that would allow parents two pretty rough options. It would be to either go into detention with their children for a prolonged period of time, over 20 days, which they're not allowed to do under court orders now, or to separate from their children. They think that somehow giving them that option would go around the reunification court order, and it's one thing that McAleenan has not ruled out, while Secretary Nielsen did resist that. So that gives us more insight into why the president made this, what seems like a rather quick decision, to oust Nielsen and to make McAleenan the secretary in her place.
And what's it called again? Binary what now?
Binary choice. You're given one choice to either be detained with your child or to separate.
Binary choice. Julia Ainsley, there was some new reporting. Stand by for me if you can, Julia. Hans, let me come to you. Yeah. Other than that, what more do we know about the acting DHS secretary now?
So just real quickly on Julia's latest reporting, that makes sense with what we're hearing from the White House this morning. Now, on the first part of Julia's reporting, and that is that the president dismissed or had his ultimate resignation with Nielsen because she was opposed to him reinstating forced separation between families and children. We just asked Hogan Gigley that here at the White House, and he seemed to suggest, and he hadn't quite read it, but he didn't deny it, and he went on to talk about sort of the perils of the Flores settlement. And just briefly, the Flores settlement puts a time limit on how long children can be detained. So you marry all this together, Julia's reporting, as well as what the White House is signaling, and it's clear that they want to have something a little more stern in preventing families from coming in and maybe separating yet again families or children from their parents, or minors from the adults that they're traveling with, just to be clear on that. All this gathered together, you listen to the rhetoric from McAleenan. He is going to be acting here as of Wednesday, and listen to how he talks about it just recently.
2 weeks ago, I briefed the media and testified in Congress that our immigration system was at the breaking point. That breaking point has arrived this week at our border.
That rhetoric is very similar to what we hear from the president. And when McAleenan was flying down on Air Force One with the president to the border this weekend, he was talking to White House officials. They feel that he is on the same policy page as the president. Craig?
All right, Hans Nichols there at the White House. Jacob, a reminder here for our viewers and listeners on Sirius Satellite Radio. You sat down one-on-one with Kirstjen Nielsen last year. Here's just part of that conversation.
Do you think violence is spilling over into the United States?
Along the border? Absolutely.
That's not what the DEA says.
I would be happy to look at the DEA materials.
You said that Nielsen avoided inconvenient facts like what we just heard there. You're also familiar with her temporary replacement, and you met with his team recently, as I understand it. How will his leadership be different?
Well, Trump is the man in charge still, Craig, and Donald Trump is the one who put into place that family separation policy. Kirstjen Nielsen was the DHS secretary at the time. Kevin McAleenan, of course, was the CBP commissioner. Everybody here, though, is on the same page with the ultimate goal, and this was the goal since the family separation policy. Number one, to indefinitely detain families, basically jail them until their asylum cases are adjudicated. And the second would be to turn around unaccompanied, undocumented asylum seekers asylum-seeking minors and send them back to their home countries immediately. So the face of the Trump administration policies is going to very well change. But the underlying goal, basically stop asylum as we know it, is not going to change. And now basically who's going to do it and how it's going to be executed is what's being worked out.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.